Hello and welcome to Perspectives for Remembrance Day 2010. My guest today is Dr. John Winch. Dr. John Winch is a World War II veteran, and he's here to share his perspective on war with us today and his story. Welcome, Dr. Winch.
Thank you. Glad to participate.
Dr. Winch, what was your reason for wanting to join the military?
Well, I blame it on my brother, my older brother Aubrey. He was 5 years older than I was, and he wanted to join up, but he didn't want to go alone, so I had to go with him. So we went together.
Pack up your troubles in your old kit bag and smile, smile, smile.
And what year did you sign up for the military?
1940.
What was the atmosphere like in Canada at the time?
Well, in Paris, I can only judge by Paris, actually, they were very much behind the war. And when England went to war, so did Paris. Mm-hmm. And I think the rest of the country was the same way. Mm-hmm. There's all kinds of people enlisted in the Air Force and the Army quickly and early.
And where did you do your basic training?
Well, they shipped us into Manning Depot in Toronto to begin with, and then we went to Trenton. We did guard duty at Trenton.
So did you go overseas or did you serve in Canada?
Well, after we finished our training in Winnipeg and Lethbridge, we were scheduled to go overseas. We're on the draft to go overseas. We ended up in St. John, New Brunswick, at a artillery cooperation unit, and we were there for a while. And from there we went to Dartmouth, and I spent considerable time there during the time when the German submarines were in the St. Lawrence. And we were doing,
is that right?
And we were doing the harbor entrance patrol there. And then when they got some more aircraft in, they shipped us up to Torbay, Newfoundland, where we did the same thing. We were there for about 6-8 months, and then they shipped us overseas, tried to get rid of us.
Tried to get rid of you.
Yeah.
Keep the home fires burning while your hearts are yearning, though your lads are...
And where did you ship out from?
Had a short leave, and we went to Halifax. Then from Halifax, we went to New York, and we got on the old Aquitania. Took us 4 days, and we landed in Greenock. And there were a lot of girls around the dock, as I remember it. But when we they told us to get off, and as soon as we got off, they shoved us into a train and took us right down to Bournemouth in southern England. We went from that Bournemouth up to Staverton. There was a little station in the middle of England, and where they had an advanced flying unit. And this is where we picked up crews. We chose people in the crews, like the pilot, navigator, wireless harbor, and so on. We went over on a leaflet raid, if I remember correctly, over the South Shore, over into France, with the old Wellington aircraft. And we got back, just back to the edge of the runway of a naval station, and the aircraft just pranged into it and it just collapsed. And we lost the bomb aimer. He was killed. The pilot was shipped back to Canada. He never recovered. And only the navigator and myself ever finished another tour.
Is that right?
And they shipped me up then to a neuroplastic hospital in Basingstoke.
So you were badly injured? Or?
I got smashed up pretty badly with my face and arms, and bruised, a lot of bruises.
Was this when you broke your jaw?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was hanging down here like a...
Oh, it was.
Yeah, it
so
was.
They wired it up, did
They wired my jaw.
And what air wing did you serve with?
I was at Eastmoor, just outside of York.
Okay.
And there were 2 squadrons there. 432, which is the University of Toronto Squadron, and 415, which is the Swordfish Squadron. And the Swordfish Squadron had been transferred up from the Coastal Command in southern England to Eastmoor. And I started off with 432 and did 4 or 5 trips with them, and then went over to 415 and finished my tour with them.
Okay. And what was your rank when you finished your military service?
Flying officer.
Flying officer. Your main role in the flights was?
Wireless operator.
Wireless operator.
Did it all.
It did with the Morse code.
Yeah, that's right.
Excellent.
And it used to be that they couldn't go up in the air unless there was a wireless operator with them, because that's the only mean of the communications far off, you see. So. In a Halifax, if you look at the nose of the aircraft, there are about 4 people in the front there. There's the bomb man right at the very front. Right behind him is the navigator. And right beside the navigator is the wireless operator. And above the wireless operator was the pilot. And beside the pilot was the engineer. So we're all mostly ganged in the middle.
Right.
In the nose, I should say.
In the nose.
But we had a mid-upper gunner and a tail gunner.
Right. Tell us, Dr. Winch, have you ever been involved in any military action?
I spent time with 432 Squadron, and I did 5 trips over Germany, 5 or 6. And then we transferred to 415 Squadron.
Okay.
And I did 30 or 31 trips with 415.
And that was over Germany as well?
Over Germany. I remember one time we went to the Cologne.
Oh, yes.
Twice in one day.
Beautiful city.
Yeah, well, we went there twice. It was kind of I don't know what they were trying to do with Cologne, but they tell me it was pretty well blasted by that time. But that was a long day.
I'll bet it was.
Yeah.
Can you explain what the term fighter's moon means to you?
Oh, fighter's moon is a condition. When we're flying in what we call a gaggle, and we were hoping for cloud, because then the fighters couldn't find us.
Okay.
But if there was no cloud, and the sky and the moon was out, boy, you're in trouble. That's what we call the fighter's moon.
The enemy could see you.
Yes.
If there was a fighter's moon.
That's right.
Okay. And Dr. Winch, how did you make your way back to Canada?
I was shipped back to Dartmouth, Nova Scotia, as the signals leader on the station to get ready for the Far East. We were going to send ships over to the Far East. And there were Dartmouth, and there was Yarmouth, and Sydney. And there were there were 2 squadrons at each one, Canadian squadrons, and they were equipped with Lancasters. And they were going to fly, we're going to train the crews, and they were going to go to the Far East. But you know, in about 30 days, VJ Day came along. Bye-bye.
That was the end.
That was the end. And my mother said, you come home. So I came home.
Dr. Winch, if you had anything to say to our viewers today or to students who might view this in the future about war, what would you like to tell them?
I joined when I was a young fellow, and I matured during the service.
I see.
And I think that's one thing it did for me. I didn't enjoy the things I had to do during the war, but I was paid to do it as a serviceman.
Well, this concludes our show for Remembrance Day 2010. And I want to say thank you very much for being on our show today, Dr. Winch. It's been a pleasure and an honor to interview you.
My pleasure.